Nebulae by Anna Arnold and A.J. Bartlett.
What are nebulae? A nebula is an interstellar cloud of dust, hydrogen, and helium, and other ionized gases.
How were they made? Nebulae are made from the huge collapse of gas in what they refer to as the interstellar medium, the gas, dust, and cosmic rays that can be found between planets and stars in galaxies. As the material falls in on itself under its own weight, large stars are made in the center. When this happens, ultraviolet radiation shoots out like a laser beam and the nebula is lit up. There are four main types of nebulae: emission, reflection, dark, and planetary nebulae.
Types of nebulae. Emissions nebulae. Emissions nebulae are clouds of high temperature gas. The atom in a cloud are energized by ultraviolet light from a nearby star and emit radiation as they fall back into lower energy states, in much the same way as neon light. These nebulae are usually red because the predominant emission line of hydrogen happens to be red. Other colors are produced by other atoms, such as hydrogen is by far the most abundant. Emissions nebulae are usually the site of recent and ongoing star formation.
Reflection nebulae. Reflection nebulae are clouds of dust which are simply reflecting the light of a nearby star or stars. Reflection nebulae are also usually sites of star formation. They are usually blue because the scattering is more efficient for blue light. Reflection nebulae and emission nebulae are often seen together and are sometimes both referred to as diffuse nebulae.
Types of nebulae, Part 2. Dark nebulae. Dark nebulae are clouds of dust which are simply blocking the light from whatever is behind. They are physically very small, very similar to reflection nebulae. They look different though, only because of the geometry of the light source, the cloud, and the Earth. Dark nebulae are also often seen in conjunction with reflection and emission nebulae. A typical diffuse nebula is a few hundred light years across.
Planetary nebulae. Planetary nebulae are shells of gas thrown out by some stars near the end of their lives. Our Sun will probably produce a planetary nebula in about 5 billion years. They have nothing at all to do with planets. The terminology was invented because they often look a little like planets in small telescopes. A typical planetary nebula is less than 1 light year across.
This is an example of an emissions nebula.
This is a reflection nebula. Just soak that one in for a little bit.
This is a dark nebula.
And this is a planetary nebula.
That one's pretty.
This picture just kind of shows where a nebula fits into the star cycle. And it's right at the beginning or the end, depending
Starting
on...
with a nebula, going to a main sequence, in turn creating a giant, then creating your star, and fits into the star cycle we're moving on.
And there's our works cited. Yay! Click the pause button.